tonight. Yeah, the invitation that I sent out to everybody gave a bit of your background and your bio, and my gosh, the products that you've brought to market over the years, it's just amazing. And you have a book out. Is it on Amazon? You have three books. Oh my gosh. It is just you have been doing this for how many years?
46 years together.
46 years together.
Yeah.
Okay. And you were married. How many years before you started this were you married?
Well, we worked together for 3 years before we got married. It shows you what a bad salesman I am. Took me 3 years to convince her that to marry me, not to just work together.
We actually started our business the first year after we met and then got married in 78.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That is just like it's such a great story. It's a story not only about for that inspires inventors because of the products they brought in, but I think it's inspiring for everybody. How you work together
Well,
and
she's so much fun. I mean,
yeah.
I don't can't imagine working without her.
I like to say I got a great deal. So
Yes. Well, I'm not even sure where to start. So, why don't we just start by letting you just kind of tell us how did you even have your first idea? How did you get started?
Well, it's hard to boil 46 years down into an hour, but
Yeah.
we like to divide our experience into three parts.
Okay.
Before sneaker balls, an air freshener for sports shoes and gym bags that we invented in 1987. During sneaker balls, part two, and then part three is after sneaker balls. So Mary Lou's got talk about the hybrid.
well, our goal tonight is to use the story of sneaker balls because it has a lot of drama and a lot of great examples of what inventors go through, and use that story to present our idea of the hybrid model of inventing in terms of getting your product to market. Because through sneaker balls, we actually started a business around it. And at first it was just the two of us in our basement. Then we grew to four of us in our basement. Then we grew to eight of us in an office. And then ultimately there were 15 of us in an office, and that office handled sales and marketing. And then we outsourced all of our manufacturing and fulfillment. And then in that process, we also licensed. And there's a lot of talk these days about the pros and cons of licensing. So we thought that it would be great to share our experience with licensing, the good, the bad, and the ugly about it, as well as what happened with our business itself. And through that, kind of let you know what our life has been like, what we've learned, and then hopefully invite you to ask questions, especially if in telling a story, we're not very clear when we're trying to make the point. We'd appreciate knowing that. But we thought we'd start with telling you how we got the idea for sneaker balls, and then go from there into everything that happened after that.
And the other thing about sneaker balls is that before sneaker balls, we worked for 15 years developing products, and we sold that company, and that company then went bankrupt, and we lost all of our income. So we had to start over, and sneaker balls came about when I was in New York trying to pitch a greeting card line to publishers at the New York Stationery Show. And I called Mary Lou at home to see how she was doing. And she said,
I said, if you have any of our friends in this car, we're not going to have friends after that, because he had his gym bag in the back seat and it smelled so awful that I had to roll down the windows just to get to, wherever I was going. And so Dennis said,
I said, well, why don't you get an air freshener for the car? And then I thought, well, wait a minute, why don't you get an air freshener for the bag? And then I think Mary Lou said, well, maybe we should get an air freshener for the shoes. So somehow we got to the idea that we should come up with an air freshener to solve this problem.
Because in those days, it was only sprays and powders that were out there for shoes. We were the first actual air freshener for a sports shoe and bag. So we actually invented the category along with the product. And first we thought about a stick up, because in those days, that was one of the easiest air fresheners that was there. And then we kept talking on the phone for an hour. So the long distance bill, it was pretty significant. And we thought, well, if it goes into shoes and this is related to a sports bag, it should be a ball. And so that night we decided, we didn't know a name yet, but we decided, okay, the shape's going to be a ball. So the next day,
What happened the next day?
you went and looked around the trade show
Oh,
you were
yeah.
at.
We did some research at the trade show to see if there was anything like it. And I noticed there were round cedar balls that you could put in closets, but that's not an invention, and it's not something we could protect. And so we had to come up with some way that was unique to solve this particular problem.
So when you got back, we went to a, excuse me, a hobby store, and I don't have the original, but we found a keychain that had a ball on a little chain, and it had a seam. So we were able to take that ball apart. So the original idea for a sneaker ball was that it was a hemisphere that you could pull it apart like this, and then we would put a cotton ball inside at that time, dipped in some kind of scented oil to fight the perspiration odor in the bag. And then somehow it would come back together. The problem was, though, if we didn't have a space, then the product or the scent couldn't get out. But also the trouble was that if we used too much oil and we had a space, it would stain the clothes. So those were some of the objections that we had to solve in coming up with the product. So this is this is the prototype that we used for a while in the bag. So we had these two halves. I don't know if you can see it, but there's these two halves, the cotton balls in the middle, and then it's scotch taped together. And so we had the scent inside, and Dennis put this in his gym bag.
Well, we spent about $10 so we could develop, I think, 4 different products that we could give to our friends to try out to see if they thought it was useful. And they all came back and said, yeah, they liked the idea. So I worked out every day and played basketball. And I played basketball with a number of guys that I didn't know very well, but we'd been playing for a long time together. So I was taking the prototypes out of my gym bag and putting them into my shoes. And the guy next to me dressing said, what are those? I said, well, we call them sneaker balls. They're air fresheners for sports shoes. He said, really? He said, well, what are you doing with them? And I said, well, we're hoping to sell them. And he said, well, I'm a stockbroker. Do you guys, are you interested in getting any investment? And I said, yes, we are, absolutely. He said, well, do you have a business plan? I said, sure, I got a business plan. And of course I had it in my head, but I hadn't written it down. So he said, well, why don't you come to my office tomorrow? And I'd like to introduce you to some people with money. And I said, sounds good to me. So I went back home, and that night I wrote a business plan on my little Apple IIc computer, and printed it out and took it in. And by the way, if anybody wants a copy of that business plan, we're giving it away free. You just go to our website and you can get it. I'll give you the link later, but you can download the plan. It's only about 10 pages. But anyway, the next day I went to his office. He read the business plan. He said, this looks pretty good. He said, I'm going to introduce you to somebody that I think might be interested in investing. And I said, great. So a couple of days later, I met with a guy who said, you know, this business plan is great, but you're asking for $250,000 and that isn't going to fly. I said, well, what would fly? And he said, well, I don't know, but why don't you come back with a better offer? So somewhere along the line, I don't know how this idea came up, But I got the idea to do an option rather than asking for investment. I would sell them an option for $30,000 that would give them the right to buy sneaker balls, the whole company, 70% of the company, for $250,000. And when I went back to offer that to them, they said, well, we like that idea.
Of course they did.
We like the idea that you could, for $30,000, we could do this. And the 30,000 was to prove the concept. So he said, well, what do you plan to do? I said, well, we would like to, well, we don't need all 30,000 up front, but I need 10,000 to get a prototype mold made that we can injection mold these products so we can take them to a trade show and get the feedback from the buyers. And he said, that sounds good. We'll give you the first 10,000 right now. And then every month for the next 3 months, we'll give you another 10,000. I said, that's great. So they did. And I contacted a banker, the friend of mine, to find out what injection molding is. Because I had heard about it, but I didn't know what it was. And so a banker, the friend, said, well, the bank has invested in a injection molding company in northern Colorado, where we lived in Denver at the time. And so he introduced me to the molder, and the molder said, well, it'll cost you $7,500 to build this prototype mold. We said, okay, we'll pay for that. So we did. Then a month went by and they were continuing to work on the prototype mold. And at the end of the month, I called the investor up and I said, you know, I need the next 10,000. And I couldn't get him on the line. He wouldn't answer my calls. And nobody in the office would give me any idea why he wouldn't answer or talk to me. So a month passed and I called him again. I called him during the month and still couldn't get any response. And at the end of the month, I called for this and wanted the second 2,000 or the third 2,000 or 30,000, the third 10,000. And at the time, the molder was watching all this happen, and I was telling him the problem I was having at the investor, and he said, "Don't worry about it." He said, "I like this idea, and we'll go ahead and pay for it ourselves, just because we want the business." So anyway, the idea was I was going in January of that next year, I was going to the LA gift show where I would show the product. And so we had to do the packaging, we had to do catalog sheets, we had to do all sorts of different things to get ready for it. And 2 days before I was ready to go to the trade show, I called the investor again and I asked somebody in the office why he wouldn't return my calls. And they said, well, he's not in. So I said, okay. So I drove down to his office and went to the parking garage and saw his Bentley in the parking garage. So I knew he was in his office. So I went up to his office and I told the secretary that I wanted to see him. His name was Tom. And she said, well, he's not in. And I said, well, his car's in the garage. And she says, well, that's not all I can tell you. So I said, do you mind if I wait? So this was in the morning. I sat on the couch in the waiting room, or in the lobby, for the entire day. And people walked in and out and they went to lunch and they came back and forth. This guy never showed up. I sat there and sat there. Everybody left at 5 o'clock. And I kept sitting there and I looked down the aisle towards his office, and he peeked his head out from behind his door. And he looked at me and he said, I guess you're not going to leave, are you? And I said, no, I want to talk to you about this money that you said you'd pay. He said, well, come into my office. Well, before I went to see him, I talked to my lawyer, my patent lawyer, and I said, what should I do? And he said, well, get him to sign a release from any ownership of this product. And I said, okay. So I wrote up a little document for that and had a place for him to sign. And I told him, I'm going to show this product at the trade show, but I can't have you didn't agree, you didn't live up to your agreement. So you need to sign the release on this product. And he kind of looked at me and he said, okay, I will. So he signed the release. And I didn't find out until much later that he couldn't talk to me because he was under investigation by the SEC and they'd frozen all of his accounts. So it was a strange situation, but we went to the trade show And the first day of the trade show, I was able to buy about 4 square feet of space for a little display in a sales rep's booth. And we paid about $400, I think, for that right to show the product. The first set started on Sunday, and Sunday and Monday, I got no action at all. Nobody understood the product, didn't care about the product. But on the third day, a guy walked into the booth and he said, I love this product.
And this is what it looked like. This is what we had. This
Well,
was our
actually, no,
earliest.
actually, it was
Well,
in
that box, okay.
it was in a box like this because it was intended for the gift market. We presumed that this would be bought by women in defense of the odor that would come from their sons and husbands' feet. So we thought it would be a great gift product. So this actually, he was a sales guy, and he said, I can sell this product to Kmart. This was back when Kmart actually existed. And I said, well, how do you know you can sell it to them? He said, because I sell other products to them. And I would like a chance to sell this product, but I'd like to license it if I can get a sale. I said, well, what kind of a sale do you think you can get? And he says, I think I can get an order for $250,000. And I kind of looked at him like, are you kidding me?
Sure.
This is, I've heard this before.
Yeah.
So anyway, I said, okay, you get me an order for $250,000 in 10 days, and I'll give you an exclusive license to make and sell the product. About a week later, I got a phone call. He was on the East Coast, and we were in Denver, and I got a call about 5 a.m. our time. And he says, I got it. I says, who is this? He said his name. He says, I've got it. What'd you get? He said, I got an order from Kmart. I said, really, how much is it? He says, 300,000. I said, you're serious? He says, I'm serious. I said, do you have the paper? Did you get the PO? And he said, no, but I got the promise from the buyer and I trust him. So
we were like,
like, okay. But then I said, we need production molds if you're going to make that many pieces of that many balls. And he said, no problem. I'll pay for the molds. I said, do you know how much they're going to cost? And he said, no. I said, at $50,000. He says, no problem. I said, okay. I still couldn't quite believe it. He says, but I'm flying out there and I want to meet this molder. So he did. He flew out, met the molder, reached an agreement with him. And that was how we launched Sneaker Balls. So, and the interesting thing is, I don't know how we came up with the idea to offer an option to this investor, but that seemed to be the thing that really intrigued him. And the idea then of being able to exercise that option. Yeah. But when we did the license with the sales guy for Kmart, we just gave him the license for the mass market, which included Walmart and Kmart and any major discount chain. And we kept the rights for ourselves to do the gift market, the sporting goods market, and all the foreign markets. So he gave us an advance of $20,000 also, and we used that money then to set up our distribution to actually buy the product from his molds at his cost and be able to open up other markets in case something didn't go well with his license. So anyway, the first year we got that $300,000 sale, and that's all we got for a year. We had no other sales.
One sale.
One sale. Then we hired a PR agent, and the PR agent got us went to the Associated Press, and he took a picture, had a photograph made of us surrounded in sneaker balls.
And the way they did that was that there was a very shallow, it would be like a table that was built with maybe a 4-inch rim all around it. And then there was a hole in the middle. So we could climb in under the table and pop up out of the middle. And of course you could notice we did our sneaker ball sweatshirts, and then they just filled in sneaker balls all around us. And then the photographer got up on a 10-foot ladder and shot that photo from above. And so that photo went out and ended up catching on. It went out on the AP wire, and it ended up in at least 50
No, I think it
newspapers
was
or
200,
more.
250.
And we figured out our circulation as a result of that one release was over 9 million people, because the clipping service told us that. And we had all of these articles with, you know, couple finds the sweet smell of success and all of that. And then the really big thing that catapulted us into people's awareness was that on July the 3rd of 1989, People magazine did a story on us. And so we were on there in the money page, and they told our story about sneaker balls. So from then on, we had all this credibility that, you know, you could never get from ads, right? PR what you get from ads. And so that started giving us the momentum then that we could approach buyers, because we could show that we had all of this awareness.
Well, our licensee had talked to Foot Locker also, and they weren't interested until after the People magazine article. Then they called him and said, let's get this product in here right away. That year, they did over $600,000 in sales between July and Christmas. So that.
And I want to add in there, you know, the advice is don't quit your day job. And I didn't quit my day job. So during all this period, I was an elementary teacher. So we have a son, and he was in middle school at that point. And so I was working at night with Dennis at the warehouse, and then on weekends, and then I would do trade shows with him in the summer. But we had that foundation for us that kept us going, especially during that year that we never got another sale.
Yeah.
So that was the teamwork part of it.
One of the interesting things about the license agreement was that we had a minimum monthly guarantee of $4,000 a month in royalties, and a yearly guarantee of $48,000.
And these are key points.
Yeah, these are absolutely essential, I think. At the end of about, I think it was maybe 2 or 2.5 years, the licensee decided that he'd paid enough royalties, and so he wasn't going to pay the minimum guarantee anymore. Even though the sales were good, he just thought that was not something he wanted to do. So we had to cancel his license agreement, or cancel him. And then he sued us for wrongful cancellation, and we ended up in court. We ended up settling that, and we took the rights back. And rather than relicensing the product, now we had enough experience in selling the product ourselves that we continued to build a sales organization to sell the product directly.
And that's one thing our experience has shown us, is that licensees will last maybe 1 to 3 years. And then there comes the question, what have you done for us lately? Because they have taken over the product, and they have invested their sweat and their money in going ahead and marketing and building the product. And so there's a tendency to forget the origin story and the obligation about they would not have had all of this if we hadn't started it. So that's hard to, when that happens, it's hard to take, but that's kind of what we found happens a lot. So
are there any questions at this point that you want clarification on, or something you're curious about? Yeah, Keith.
I'm just curious as to, you made these decisions and so forth that you're ongoing. It sounds like you already had background to make some pretty wise decisions. I'm wondering, had you been going to trade shows all your life since you were age 5, or how did you feel? How did you feel comfortable going to trade shows and not feeling like you were just some outsider and so forth? Or what's your background to make you feel comfortable in all these decisions and trade shows and everything else?
Well, we got started in 1976. And I was an architect practicing at the time, but we were in a sudden recession, not as bad as the one that hit us in 2008 or 9, but there was nobody building anything. So I had to come up with another way to make some money. So Mary Lou and I got the idea to create some graphics that we would sell, and we framed them and put them in boxes and tried to sell them as gift items, which was a terrible idea. But got us into the business of understanding what the gift market was like. And somebody at I went to an LA trade show, one of the first shows that I'd ever been to. And somebody said, the big money is in alternative greeting cards. So I didn't know what that was, but I checked, did some research and found out that that was a growing category. So Mary Lou and I sat down and wrote a series of greeting cards, but rather than just simply have a one-page, open it up and there's a message inside, we decided to make them into 10-page or 12-page booklets. And not only that, but you guys are maybe old enough to remember Burma Shave, the Burma Shave signs that used to be on the highways before the interstate, and they would have like a rhythm that would set up da 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 da, and then it would be a little message on each. A placard that was spaced out about 100 yards or so along the road. And we got the idea that this would make an interesting rhythm for a greeting card if we could write poetry that was funny enough that people would like it. So we did. We created 24 cards. We had, this was back when, like 15 years before Sneaker Balls.
And this was when there were 3 greeting card companies that were big. There was Gibson, American Greetings, and Hallmark. And so then the alternatives were starting to come, but the big ones owned the market share.
Yeah. There was Recycled Paper and Blue Mountain Arts. Those were the 2 primary.
And Leaning Tree.
And Leaning Tree were primary greeting card lines that were starting to up and coming. Anyway, we created these cards and had them printed up and took them into a retail store, a Hallmark store, and asked them if they could sell them for us. And they said,
we put a rack in the store.
Yeah, we had a wire rack. And they said, yeah, we'll give it a shot. So they put it down at the end of an aisle. And this was on a Sunday, I think, or a Saturday. And about 4 or 5 days later, the guy called me up and he said, you got to get down here. I said, why? And he said, we need more cards. And so Mary Lou and I went down to the store and.
Well, and one of the fun things was that we filled the rack and then we stood in the next aisle so people couldn't see us or know we were associated. And we would listen to people read the cards out loud and laugh. And I can't tell you what a joy that was, and the feeling of success, like every inventor feels when they've got a product that actually works, that we just had the best time. And the funny part about it, the cards too, was that they were considered risque. And the word that really bothered the store owners was at one point, one of the cards ended in the word fart. And so they had to keep that card in a brown paper bag underneath the counter to accommodate what Hallmark's standards were. But that sugar-free cards line lasted through the 80s. We licensed that line too at one point to Carolyn Bean, which was a publishing company. And we renamed sugar-free cards as Juicy and sold it to them. So, it's just, as to your point, Keith, once you get to the trade show, it's amazing. You just don't know where you're going to end up and who you're going to meet. And I'll never forget our first trade show. We drove in Dennis's Scirocco to the Peachtree in Atlanta. And Dennis went inside and I'm sitting in the car wondering if we're going to get towed. And we figured out how to get in, because we didn't even know how to enter into the trade show, what badges we need or whatever. And all of a sudden we're in a different world, and there's words like Keystone and all of these different acronyms. And we had no clue. You talk about dummies. I mean, we just kind of trying to keep our mouths shut and listen. And that is a lot of what is good to do at a trade show, and let people brag and tell you everything they know and just absorb it all. Cause that we got our trade show PhD in that first one.
And the nice thing was that at that show, there was a guy across the aisle from us who had a jewelry booth, a jewelry counter. And he was always leaving there and was afraid that somebody was going to steal his jewelry, but he had to leave. I don't know where he was going, making deals somewhere or what, but he asked us if we would watch his booth.
I was supposed to go be behind the counter, right? And so I was his rep.
Yeah. So as a result of us helping him, he offered to give us booth space in New York. Was that 2 weeks later?
Chicago?
No, was it Chicago?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was Chicago. So we drove to Chicago from Atlanta with all of our stuff in the back of the car. And then after that, he said, well, I'll give you some space in New York if you want, at the Coliseum. We said, that sounds great. So we drove home to Denver, and then we flew to New York. And
so we had t-shirts made that said sugar-free cards. And we had enough room in this booth that we could stand there by the cards with us on either side on the aisle. And that's how we spent the trade show.
My goodness.
And so our first year in sales with our graphics was $20-some thousand, and we had more breakage and returns than, it was just a terrible thing. But once we introduced the greeting cards, the next year we did $180,000. The year after that, we did 576,000. And the year after that, we did 1.2 million. So at each time we added another product, another line of greeting cards or a novelty product, like we had a product called phony credit cards, which were make-believe credit cards that were humorous, like the First Rational Bank, the bank that would loan you money when you needed it, not when you didn't.
And Neiman markup.
Neiman markup. And
Ecumenical Express that guaranteed you front row seating at the church or the synagogue. So
anyway, the problem was, and this is really important to inventors and entrepreneurs to know about money. We did not understand accounting. So we had Arthur Anderson as our accountant. So they set us up with what's called a batch processor. We would take all of our receipts down to this accounting firm that was a batch processor. They'd run everything through their system. The problem was, if we sold something they set up the accounts to be relieved at a percentage of the sale price, not an actual fixed cost of goods, but a percentage of the sale price. So every time we sold something at a discount, we were losing money, but we thought we were making money. And as a result, in about 1983, we ran short of cash. We couldn't figure out where our cash was. And as a result, we ended up having to sell the company. We had good assets, but we didn't have the cash. So we sold the assets they covered all of our debts, $350,000 they paid the bank, and they gave us 180,000 shares of their stock, public company. And they gave me a $48,000 salary to continue developing products. And Mary Lou then went back to teaching. So that was a dip for us.
The dip in that was that before all that deal finished, we ended up, because our salaries were cut off, all of a sudden we couldn't pay our mortgage, and the bank would not allow us to make partial payments. So we ended up being foreclosed. And I can't tell you the personal shame and failure I felt about that. It was just very hard to not be able to pay our bills. And so, but that's part of our way we work together. You don't blame one another, right? And you forgive yourself for not knowing what you didn't know, and you go forward. So I went back to teaching, and because I had actually quit teaching thinking I was going to work full time as a card designer in this new company. And I had to quit teaching after just 1 year and go back to teaching. And we sold a car. And so we were down to one car, and Dennis would drive me to school every day and pick me up at night. And then he was working on cards during the day. But I must say, those were some of the most wonderful times, because when we were in the car, we really, really talked, and we grew very close, and we found a little condominium. And so it was within that condominium, that in the basement of that then Sneaker Balls were born. And so
Isn't that amazing how, life takes you in those paths and those lessons
yeah.
Yeah.
that you learn? That you're so inspiring, to all of us. I have a question for you too, going back to sneaker balls. For our new inventors that are out there that have just, gotten the idea, maybe just starting to play around with prototypes. When you first had your idea for sneaker balls to the time that you actually got it to market, how much time passed?
I'd say about 6 to 8 months.
That's fast.
Yeah, it was pretty fast because we already knew what it needed to look like. We just needed the money to be able to produce it.
Well, and there was an important part of that we learned that took some time, and that was when we first did a scent that we thought was going to work on our cotton balls, we picked fruit scents. And then when we met with a scent manufacturer, they said, oh no, you never mix with fruit scents with perspiration odor, because it creates it turns
So
into a
rancid.
rotten
Yeah.
fruit smell.
Rotten fruit.
And so through them, we
funny.
came up with an odor blocker. And that was the fun part of Sneaker Balls, was the science of it, where the odor blocker created fake protein molecules. And in the nose, that's the one part of the body where nerve endings are exposed to air. And so that's part of when we smell, whatever molecules are there for the smell are docking inside of the nose. So we had, when you opened the sneaker ball, the fake protein molecules docked in where protein molecules for sweat normally would dock, because they were the right size. And then the freshener molecules for the scent were docking in different parts of the nose. So we did not kill anything. It's just we tricked the brain into thinking that everything smelled good. And so that enabled us then to create, on our packaging, we could feature that we had this odor blocker. Well, getting that figured out was part of that journey of solving that problem.
Yeah, we didn't invent the odor blocker. That
No.
was our scent manufacturer invented that. So,
But we could display it on the packaging. I'm trying to see if we've got one. It may be too tiny for you to see, but down here it says made with TX. We had to name the odor blocker, so we named it TX3 because we thought that sounded really powerful. So that was our odor blocker.
the next stage that was pretty interesting is the intellectual property that we created around sneaker balls. We had a really good patent attorney and group in Denver called Dorr, Carson, Sloan, and Peterson. And they advised us to create a basket of protection in that a trademark, name trademark, a design trademark, and a design patent and a utility patent. We never got the utility patent, but we got the others. And the design trademark was the one thing that we were able to use to protect that product all through the years. One of our best customers, Foot Locker, actually knocked it off, and we had to sue them in federal court, and that took 3 years and about $600,000 in payments. But we won the case, and
well, there's some drama in there too, in that when we filed, well, first we sent the cease and desist letter, and Woolworth owned Foot Locker and Kenny. So Woolworth was the parent company. So we sent the cease and desist letter to there. And of course they didn't respond. You know, who were we? We were just little flies on the wall. So then we realized that we had to stop them, because if you don't, as a lot of you know, if you don't defend your trademark, you lose it. And that was new information for me. I thought if you had a trademark, it was like a driver's license and it's okay. It's like, okay, you own, you know, you can drive, you got the road, it's okay. Boy, was that the wrong idea, because then I learned, no, somebody else, if you don't defend it, they'll take it. So the first judge we were assigned passed away
After 2 years of the first 2 years of the case.
and so we didn't get like the next judges, you know, we didn't get in the same slot. They put us down at the bottom of the pile, like we had just filed. So during all this time, we are paying the lawyers for their fees. We did find lawyers who would do a contingency, but we had an agreement that we had to pay them.
Well, it was only $2,000 a month.
Well, only in those days was big.
Yeah.
So we were paying them for all of this time when nothing was happening in this case, right? And the other side had the deepest pockets in the world. So they came in with for deposition, and they actually copied every single paper in our file cabinet, including a magazine that I might have marked one story, and but they copied the whole magazine. And then of course they billed us for those expenses. So and then when we got to trial in 92, the judge bifurcated the case, and he did it the first day of the trial, which meant that he only was going to let the jury hear the liability portion of the case. And this is in federal court in the federal district court in Denver. So we had 8 people on the jury. And so they only got to hear the liability part, which was, the good news is we won. And, but then the judge, after that was done, said, okay, you can either have another trial in a year with another jury, or you can have me decide the damages in 6 months. Well, obviously with what I talked about with the meter running, we decided that we would, you know, use the judge, even though he was really an interesting character. And it was Judge Maish, who was the Oklahoma bombing case judge. And so during all of this too, we're trying to run this business, right? We're trying to still keep all this going. Plus I got in a car accident and ended up having to have cervical fusion because I was rear-ended. And so my productivity went way down because I was having issues. So, I mean, it's like this drama, right? There's all this stuff going on, but then I'll let you talk. We got to the damages part.
Yeah, well, the damages part, the judge decided that they owed us $600,000. Our legal fees at the time was $700,000. So, but the contingency agreement made the lawyers take the bulk of the loss on that. So it was a fascinating 3 years of, you know, just about destroying your brain with all the crap that went on.
Well, and
we learned so much though about the law and about trademark law and patent law, and it was really fascinating. And I think it was the great thing about it was that after that we had a couple of different companies try to knock the product off, and all we did was send them an article from the newspaper saying we'd won the case, and they just dropped it immediately. So it was probably the best insurance ever, because that product has been on the market for 32 years and continues to sell around the world. We sold our interest in it in 2005, but it still sells now, and it sells under the name Nixmax, I think. We sold it to somebody, they sold it a couple of years, or maybe last year, to another company, but It's, if you go into Amazon and Google or in search for sneaker balls, you'll see all kinds of sneaker ball variations now.
So once we settled well, the other thing was they appealed the decision. And so on Valentine's night in 93, we were preparing dinner for each other. And we were talking about our future and what deep pockets they had, and they could appeal forever. So this is the part that I really value. And if hopefully you can find somebody and a partner that you trust and respect, that you can really talk with. And we decided that night that winning was not so important, that to the point that we'd keep going. We decided to settle that night. So we went ahead and did that. And the relief that brought, and then how it freed our minds, which we're going to show you then what came next about all the products that came out of that one idea for a ball. So are there any questions about the court case or any of this part?
Mary Lou, what was the hardest part of going through all that, you think?
I think it was the David and Goliath feature of that part of just knowing that these people were so powerful. I mean, I felt powerless. And then also that we didn't know the law, right? You don't, when you get into this, you don't really know all the ins and outs. And so I quit teaching in 80 because I knew, 90, because I knew that if I was going to be a good partner, we started studying case law. And our lawyer helped us find a lot of cases that were trademark infringement cases that we could understand what this meant. And just so you all know, what happens with a trademark infringement means that if the person who knocks you off has a product that is confusingly similar to the point that the public can't tell the difference between the knockoff and the person and your original product, then that's infringement, because they have copied you so closely that they have blurred the origin. And so I have a copy. I have here what they did and what we did. So this was they called theirs sports balls and ours were sneaker balls. And even though the packages have some differences, you can kind of see out of all the packaging choices they had out there, why did they put two balls side by side in a package, that was pretty similar at the bottom with the same kind of top, and then on the back, same thing where they were describing the product. And they copied us even down to calling a scent Evergreen Mist, which was a name Dennis and I made up. And so we were very unique, because normally in this kind of case, you would go and you would try to find a focus group and you would show them the two products and you would say, okay, which, what do you see? And are these different, and so forth. But we actually had witnesses that we found, including our Canadian distributor, who testified that they saw them in the stores and thought they were the sports balls, the copies, and they thought they were ours. And so we got them to.
And they wondered why we hadn't told them about the new product that we came out
It
with.
was like, hey, I thought you were going to let us know, because in our business plan, you'll see we were going to do sports balls as our next iteration. And so that helped us tremendously on the liability part. But it was hard because you're all alone and you're not sure. And the lawyers kept saying, quit playing lawyer. And one of the moments I'll never forget was I had said to Dennis, we ought to look at all the time this case is taking from us and look at our salaries, and we should charge as part of our damages, you know, all the money we're losing in salary that we're devoting to this case. And so we figured that out and we gave it to the lawyers. And then in the case, when we were doing the damages, the judge said, well, you know, do you have I can't remember the question, but it was, anyway, it was that point was, you know, how have you been damaged? And our lawyer didn't, you know, he had the figure, he didn't bring it up, you know.
The judge pulled out his pen and he said, how much was it?
The judge had his pen in his
How much
hand.
how much time and money do you think you personally spent on this case?
You know,
You know,
so
it was funny.
anyway, you just, I don't know how to explain having the digging deep and just believing that you're right and you just keep fighting. I mean, it's hard to capture that, but that's how we felt. We were right. We had done everything right, and they were trying to take it away, and we weren't going to let them do it. So,
Well, fortunately, also we were contacted at some, was it right around then when we got contacted by QVC?
yes, that's the next phase. So now
Yeah.
we're going into the QVC phase.
Yeah, a sales rep we were at a sporting goods show, and a sales or a rep for QVC came by and he said, you could sell these on QVC, couldn't you, the balls? And we said, well, we wouldn't want to do that because it would hurt our retail business, but we could come up with another brand and put the balls in there and call them something else. And they said, great, let's do it.
So this is what we created. We invented the name Little Magicians. And of course, the box is pretty beat up these days. It's so old. But so we put 12 balls in a box, and then we had different colors. And then we said they were for different purposes. So we had orange vanilla scent for RVs and boats, and wild berry scent for closets, and wild berry scent for bathrooms. So we were trying to make it have a different position for QVC.
We sold about 500,000 balls on QVC just from that thing. And then we also created another ball product called Sentimentals, which was scented ornaments for artificial trees. And we sold that on QVC one summer at what they call Christmas in July. And they sold about 5,000 boxes of it as a test. And then by Christmas, they had made a larger order. We sold about 50,000 boxes of those for one Christmas. So, I mean, we kept extending this product. It was just a container that you could put all kinds of things in.
Well, one other point about that July, I think it was the July sale. It was a today's special value. So I would go on air with the hosts, and Dennis would be in QVC. They have a back room where they have the computers, and they have amazing metrics about everything going on behind the scenes about what's selling. And if I said something that somehow shot the sales up, then he could tell me on the break, you said this and this really worked for the sale. Well, remember when O.J. Simpson was running from the police and all we saw on TV was it a Bronco?
White Bronco.
White Bronco with all the police after it. Well, eventually even QVC was showing that. And so we lost the rest of the evening that night to O.J. Simpson's chase. So those are the freaky things that happen along the way. But anyway, so then we did, to Dennis's point, we started doing other extensions for the ball. So we did, we also sold this product in Europe. So I happen to have a French package. But we started looking, okay, what are all the things you could use the balls for? So one of them was putting citronella inside the ball so that you could hang it from your outside umbrella and keep insects away. So in French, it was, I don't remember my French, but we called them bug balls here in the United States. And
we did Ballmania. Here's one. Here's Ballmania. Let's do this one.
Okay. Well, Balmania came later, though. I was gonna do all
Oh.
these. You have the other ones behind us. We started segmenting the household. So then we had lavender balls that we did for the drawers in the house. And then we also did rose balls. And I don't have a cedar ball, but cedar balls were some of the most successful ones we did, and we packaged those for QVC. And then that was an alternative to using mothballs in the closet, because the chemical in mothballs is actually poisonous for humans. So one of the things as an inventor, and if you're marketing your product, you want to do as much research as you can into your product. And so I learned all about the life cycle of a clothes moth. And it is not the adult clothes moth that actually eats the hole in the sweater. It's the adult moth lays eggs on the sweater, and when the egg hatches, it's the pupae or it's not larva. That's it. It's the larva that eats the hole in the sweater. And so you learn how to incorporate that into your story, because it helps people on QVC to show that you are actually knowledgeable about the product, that you're not just there to sell, but you're also there to educate. And so we would make sure I would do a features and benefits. And this is something else for everybody, no matter where you all are in your process, is you create the features and benefits of your product, and you make a sheet with the two sides, and you have the feature, which, for example, might be that on a sneaker ball, it might be that, as I said before, that that it opened, and the benefit was that then the scent was able to reach the nose. And our latest version, they actually twisted. They didn't come apart, they twisted like this. And so that way you could explain that, then you could close the ball. So anyway, but those were just the things to go on QVC.
We ended up selling 10 different products on QVC in the 90s. And we sold 6 products to Walmart. One of the most successful products we did with Walmart was we took the sneaker ball, we called them speed balls for the car. And we offered them to Walmart just as a yellow ball. And they said, no, we're not interested. And we said, okay, well, we'll come up with something. So we went back and decided to print a happy face on the ball. And we took it back to Walmart, and they said, now that we like. It was that simple. And so we ended up on 18,000. We ended up in 3,000 stores and 6 registers in each store. So it was 18,000 placements. It was $1 million order for that one little ball with a printed face on it. So that product ended up doing over about $4 million at Walmart. And the funny thing was, we took it to Kmart, and the same with the happy face on it. And back in that time period, the happy face was essentially a logo for Walmart. And so they said, well, why would you show that to us? And we told them what the sales were, and they said, well, I understand why you showed it to us. We'll buy it immediately. So they put it into all the Kmart stores. That was really a crazy little product, but it was a lot of fun. So we're always trying to think of ways to extend the simple shape that kind of has so many different functions.
Well, and that gets us to Balmania.
Oh yeah.
So did you keep that package? Or? Yeah. So we kind of had done everything we could think of about the ball that twisted. So
we decided this container could put something else in it, and that was lip balm.
And it could twist open.
So you twist the top off, and then it's like a pot that you use put your finger on it and onto your lips. This product did in 5 years did $18 million at wholesale. So it's just absolutely the simplest things you can imagine sometimes are really surprising to us. So anyway, this was a really fun product to do. And the research we had into in order to create a lip balm and how to find a supplier that could, and all these were done in the US. So all of the manufacturing and all of the work that we did, we finally, I think at some point we started making some things in China that couldn't be made in the US, but so are there any more questions? I mean, sure, we've covered so much stuff that.
Yeah, there's a question that came in on, I'm sorry, I missed it. It's from Doug Massey, who's one of our members. And he asked, is there any way, once you have a product on the market, to have a system to fast track for preventing others from, putting the inventor into court? It's as you all experience, it's kind of a waste of time and money and stress and anxiety and all those horrible things that you go through, in a legal battle like that. Is there anything you can do ahead of time to try to prevent that from happening that you may have learned?
There's a big difference between a trademark lawsuit and a patent suit.
Okay.
We have never been involved with a patent suit because although we've got 16 patents on different parts of our products, I don't know that I would have sued anybody if it had been a patent issue, because it's so complicated and so difficult the first thing somebody's going to try and do is invalidate your patent. So it's very difficult to fight that. But the more solid your IP is, of course, the better it is. But we also tried to settle with Woolworth. We constantly trying to settle with them. In fact, we flew to New York with our lawyers to have a major meeting in their big boardroom, and the only people that showed up for this meeting to make a settlement were the other lawyers on their side, and we couldn't get them to talk to us. So it was very, very frustrating.
Wow.
I mean, we didn't want to continue the lawsuit, but we just had no choice. If we didn't defend the mark, we would lose it. And so we had to do it.
Well, and they had obtained a patent on sports balls, even though we had been declined a patent. They obtained a patent on sports balls as an improvement to sneaker balls
In Canada.
Wow.
And so they kept trying to argue the case based on their patent. And so it was very interesting because we kept going back to no, but this is a trademark case and that your patent doesn't matter. And so in that case, the trademark was triumphant. But yeah, I don't know how you speed it up. But part of it's just deciding how long you're going to hang in there.
Yeah.
So
it's my gosh, the stress, that you go under with those kind of things. I know that since, today our patents aren't as strong as they once were before. There's all kinds of, as time goes on, there's loopholes, there's everything, so it's all continually evolving. So I know that that is a concern for people. Just to rewind a little bit, when you talk about sneaker balls and just kind of getting started with it, and you talked about the trade show, for our new inventors, what would be your advice about trade shows? How important are they to
well, if you're new in the
product?
Yeah, if you're new with a new product, they're well, of course, the last year it wasn't possible, but yeah, it's very important to go to a trade show, even if you just walk the show and see what's there and see how your product fits into the milieu of the whole market. Also, I would suggest going in online to look at most of the trade shows will give you a list of all the exhibitors and where their booths are. So you have a feeling, and also most of those exhibitors will put something up about their products to prepare buyers for coming to the show. But if you're going to sell a product at a trade show, what we did was we borrowed some space from companies that we that we had some contact with, or that we knew somebody who had contact with them to help us make a deal. I don't know if you have no experience at all, what the cost of a trade show booth is today, because we haven't done one for years.
Right.
But it's the first thing is go to trade shows, go to the trade show directory online and start looking at all the different trade shows there are around the country, because there's a trade show for everything you can think of.
Right.
And that's useful.
And you also can find sales reps there too. So you can just kind of go up to a booth, and sometimes the sales reps are running the booth, and you just strike up a conversation about the product, and you don't necessarily reveal. You can just walk as a guest, or you can say you're a buyer. It depends on whatever the trade show badge you get. But you can just kind of then talk to different people and get a feel for their personalities, and think in your mind, would this be somebody that I might want to work with? And start to get a list of names. And the other part of it is seeing who are the sales reps and the distributors in the category of your product.
And when we started out, there weren't a lot of big box stores. There weren't a lot of chains, so that most of the sales were done with independent accounts. And so there were a lot of sales reps in those days. Today, the number of sales reps has really dwindled. And I know a friend who's a sales rep, a master rep for a lot of different companies. And he said that the average age now of a sales rep is like 60 years old. So it's something, it's sort of a dying breed of sort of like Death of a Salesman. Willie Loman is out there, but doesn't have very many places to sell anymore. Most of the big sales are done to the major accounts, and you need a sales rep to do that. You can't get into the front door of a Target or a Bed Bath and Beyond or a Home Depot without a sales rep. At least that's my feeling about it. So it's really important to try and find somebody that has a connection, that sells other products. You can still go into stores and look at the packaging and find the names of companies that make those products, and sometimes they have the distributor's name on there also. There's ways to get in, but you really need to network. You can't just call somebody up. We were at QVC one time showing a product, and I asked the buyer how he finds new products, and he said, well, it's very difficult, because he said, I get 700 emails a day, or 700 phone messages a day. This was before email. He says, I said, what do you do with them? He says, I delete them all. He says, there's no way I can deal with that. And so the only way that he or she, the buyers, find new product is through sales reps that live at QVC and are constantly searching. So go in and Google sales rep for QVC, and you'll find all kinds of people that claim to be sales reps for QVC. And then you can vet those, and maybe they will like your product and pitch it to QVC. But the same is true of virtually all retailers. You can find sales reps or somebody that's selling product to them by Googling it. That's one of the most, it's obviously everybody knows about it, but it's often you don't think about it using it creatively.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's so many pearls that you have, given to us throughout your presentation. And I've made a lot of notes, myself too, of one of the things that really kind of hit me that is so brilliant that you did was your hybrid model, of commercialization. So you kind of licensed, but yet reserved your own rights. That's just brilliant.
Yeah, see, we're big believers in developing the product to the point where it becomes valuable.
Mm-hmm.
Not just sending in a sales sheet to somebody
Right.
saying, hey, you love our product. You have to prove that it has some value. And it doesn't take a ton of money to do that. We just developed a new product about a year ago that is a backrest for the toilet seat. So for people, especially that have muscle problems and they don't have good support for their back and have back pain, it's a product that we developed we did the drawings for them, very simple drawings, no CAD stuff, just simple drawings on using Illustrator. Sent them to China, got a prototype made for $380, brought it in, tested it for 6 months, and then ordered 500 units that we could put on Amazon and test it. And that 500 units cost us $5 a piece. We sold it for $24.95 at retail. And we're selling them every day on Amazon. And we're making a profit every day on Amazon. So you don't need to be rich to introduce a new product. It just has to be unusual, you know, something that nobody else is doing. And we always tell our students, we have an online school called Big Idea School. And
I get out of the way.
I'll show you on our share our screen.
Yeah, I was going to ask you to explain that a little bit further for our audience, so that we know what that is.
This is the homepage, and let's see here. If you scroll down, you'll see all these different courses, and they're basically how to create useful products that people love and might even make you rich. They're simple. What we do to create new products, how we do that, and how you can do it too. We have 12 ways to evaluate your new product. Not sure why these are.
Well, it's catching up. It's just.
And how to protect your work using patents, trademarks, and copyrights. This is written for creative people, not for lawyers. So
it's written for inventors.
For inventors and entrepreneurs. And then how to design your promotional materials, because so many people don't think they have the skills. But we show them how to use Canva, which is a design tool. It's a free tool, and how to put their product on a piece of paper so that they can express their product. Now, all 4 of these courses we sell for $97, or you can buy them individually for $30 or $40. And then we have our book also, Shark Pitch, with how to sell anything in 3 easy steps, even if you hate selling. So that's what what Big Idea School is about. And by the way, if anybody's interested in a copy of that business plan,
yes,
for Sneaker Balls, it is bigideaschool.com/biz. And you can just put your name in there and download it. And it was written in 1967. It's a very
87 or 77. You said 67.
Oh, was it 7?
It was written in 77.
Oh, was it? Anyway, it's a very simple plan. But if somebody ever asks you, what's your business plan, or how are you going to sell this product? How are you going to get this into the hands of consumers? What is the method for distribution? What are you going to do? Are you going to put it into, you think you're going to put it into Home Depot? Maybe you will, maybe you won't, but you need to put that down and say how you're going to get it into Home Depot. So the business plan is, I think it's 10 pages. It's very simple, but it'll give you an idea of how to think about what you're going to do with your product when you get the idea.
And one of the things we didn't bring up about Sneaker Balls is that in that period from 88 to 94, we were selling in 22 foreign countries as well. And we used distributors to get us into those countries. And looking at the act that now has caused everybody so much trouble as inventors, even back then, it was first to file rather than who invented it. And Spain had that
for trademarks.
For trademarks. So we were not able to sell in Spain because that company had filed and they wanted some exorbitant amount. So we skipped them. But the other part of this that makes this story so much more fun and heartwarming is that you form relationships with these distributors. And so we especially were close to our French distributor, And eventually he took over all of the European distribution for our products, and was great because he translated the packaging and the instructions into all the different language, and he knew all the rules. But we would go to Paris and visit him, and he would take us places that normal tourists would, our usual tourists would never, ever get in to see. Or, we got to see how French people lived. And our Greek distributor came and stayed with us, and on and on. But your world broadens so much when you meet people from other countries, and they ask you about your country, and you start to see what other countries, how they view you, and same for how we viewed them. And it's a byproduct that I don't think is talked about enough in this process.
That's one of the joys of having a company that you can sell product and not just license it. So you develop wonderful relationships with people all over the world, and that's a treat. So,
what a journey.
yeah.
Oh my goodness. What a journey you two have gone on. And, some of the things that I've noted that are, I think everybody has to have in order, to go forward, and that you two kind of exemplify, is your persistence.
Yeah.
You have to have that, and the tenacity to keep going, knowing that you're right. I mean, that keeps you going through all the legal part, the legal stress you went through, but also creating the products, and keep going, and keep refining them, and they will always change.
Yeah.
Is that correct? And what I was thinking too, where a lot of our inventors that have products already, all the line extensions you've done with that original idea.
Yeah.
And that's just showing how you're thinking outside of the box, so to speak.
Outside the ball, yeah.
How else can we use this? What else can we do with this?
If you've ever taken a course in creative thinking, I think one of the first questions they ask you is, how many uses can you think of for a brick? And it goes from there. So anyway,
Well,
Keith, did you have a question? Did you have a question? I thought I saw Keith raise his hand or something.
I
don't know, but we do have a few questions in the chat.
Yeah, I was gonna say, there's people in the chat that have.
Okay,
questions.
we'll zip it and answer questions.
Okay, let's see. Okay, now Anthony Fiamingo had a question, and I think this has been here for a little while, because it goes back to when you were talking about the lawsuit that was more of a trademark issue and not a patent issue.
Right.
And he asked, can you kind of clarify that a little bit more as to how you brought that back to a trademark issue and held them at bay about their patent?
Well, the beauty of trademarks is that anything that is confusingly similar to your product, not exactly, but even looks like it could belong in the same family,
Right.
Is considered an infringement on your product, but you have to take action against that person to stop them from copying you. I mean, copying is okay as long as the product is not protected in some way. And we had a registered trademark. There are two registers in the trademark office. One is called the supplementary register, a supplemental register, and one is called the principal register. I was talking to a friend of mine recently about his trademark and asked him if he had filed for the trademark, and he said no, because he thought his name was descriptive and therefore couldn't be trademarked. And the truth is that you can file a name that is expressive, or what's the word? Descriptive, but you file it on the supplemental register. And then as you use it over time, it creates value, and it becomes known, and the trademark office will then accept it for being put onto the principal register. And once it's on the principal register, it's considered to be it can't be challenged, like a patent can be challenged. So nobody's going to say your trademark isn't valid. And the trademark, the name trademark, of course, is different than the shape trademark. And we had a trademark on the shape. A ball with a band around the middle was our trademark. And anybody that tried to do a ball with a band around the middle that was an air freshener was in violation of our trademark. So a lot of people don't understand what design trademarks are, but they're very powerful. The Coca-Cola bottle shape, the original glass bottle shape, is a design trademark, or it may be a design patent, but I think it's a design trademark as well. So
and also to get back to that question, our lawyers during the trial would be the ones that would bring it back, because the other side, the defendants would argue about their patent, and then our lawyers would point out that this isn't a patent case, so that what you just said doesn't count, basically.
It's very interesting. I know that today also, since our patent system, we're trying to work towards strengthening it again, but trademarking is becoming actually another focal point as a way to add more layers of security around your product. So there's a couple more questions too, but before we go on to the other questions, you said with your business plan, they could find that at bigideaschool.com/biz. Is that
Yes.
correct?
BIZ, yeah.
BIZ. Okay, I'm going to put that in the chat, but I wanted to make sure I had it correct before I click the button here. Okay, there's another one real quick here from Russell Stevenson. Did you have mentors? If you did, as you were starting out, who were they?
We didn't have any mentors. It was sad, but we didn't know anybody who had done what we were trying to do.
I had one.
Oh, who?
You.
Oh, well, I didn't.
Sounds like
I
you
had no
had each
clue what I
other.
was doing.
But
Oh.
I'm serious about this, because my background was teaching. And so when we started inventing, Dennis would learn, he would research and learn, and then he would share with me. And I know we would not have been successful if he hadn't been able to research the way he did. He's insatiably curious. And also his architectural skills for rendering and all of that came into play. And then, because he'll never tell you all this, so I'm going to. He's also an artist. And so all of the design, all of the part that makes it an attractive product is also his design. So we saved so much money because we didn't have to go out and hire an artist or, hire someone to do the drawing. Well, we did for patents, but every step of the way, Dennis did it himself. And so watching him, he was my mentor in that respect.
We did meet people along the way, though, who were very helpful in guiding us to solutions to certain problems that we didn't understand.
Right.
But there was no like guru or anything that I wish we had. With our Big Ideas School, what we do is mentor our students too, and help them understand if they have a good product. Just paying $30 or $40 for a course is just the beginning. We answer all kinds of questions and spend hours and hours helping students get through, understanding what they're going through and trying to advise them about what not to do. Don't do this because this is what may happen. I mean, a lot of times they don't listen because that's the way we are. We like to learn our own mistakes, but we're there to help our students. We're not just there to take 30 or 40 bucks and leave them alone.
An important book was Napoleon Hill, his Think and Grow Rich. That was one of the books that was important for us.
There were a lot of good books out there that I love to read. So I learned a lot, of course, from books, and now from the internet. The internet is just a incredible place. So
Yeah, there's just a wealth of information out there now too. And I have to tell you too, with your big idea school, that is so I think reasonably priced, which we see a lot of things out there where people will spend thousands and thousands of dollars.
Terrible.
And I love it that you have it almost kind of cafeteria style also, so they can kind of get their feet wet and see what they need. And, I think that's just so important. So I thank you very much, for letting us know about that. Let's see, we have another question here though, before we start wrapping up for the night. For your backrest product, the toilet seat, toilet back, what do you call that? Toilet back, toilet seat?
Called Throne Daddy.
Throne Daddy.
Throne Daddy, the
Here,
Throne Daddy.
I'll go get it.
Oh no, I'll share the screen with you. I'll
Oh,
show you.
okay.
I'm thinking my mom needs that at her nursing home. They spend a lot of time there
Yeah,
on the
no,
throne.
what happened with this product? It was featured on the Today Show with Hoda and Jenna right before Christmas, and we sold out on Amazon.
Is
So it was a real surprise, and we were busy packing at home because we had product at home we could get out also. But the idea is that the Throne Daddy turns your toilet into a comfy chair.
Yeah, that is great.
So
Yeah, very, very cool.
anyway, this will give you an idea of
Mhm. That is just
So mainly we market that as a men's gift. It's 90% of the buyers are women who are looking for something for all of the men in their life, their dads, their partners, their brothers, and so forth. And it's always hard to find a male gift. So with Father's Day coming up, we're hoping that we're going to see a little spike here.
yeah, we've seen a big jump in orders already, just getting closer. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great idea. That really is.
Well, it's one of those things where you either get it, or if you've got a bad back,
Uh-huh.
like I do, I've had 2 back operations, so I really need lumbar support when I sit down, no matter
Right.
what kind of chair it is or anywhere.
Mhm.
And especially, when you get to be old, I'm 77. So when you get up out of bed in the night 3 or 4 times a night, to use the toilet, it's nice to be able to sit back and relax.
Mhm. That's right. Well, you combine that with, what was that other product? Squatty Potty?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. You pair it up. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
okay. Thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and end tonight.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
again, this was the Inventors Association of Arizona, and we try to mentor people also. So if you have any questions, please go to our website at azinventors.org. Okay, thank you all very much.
It was a
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Thank you.